Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today's video will be theoretical and I will not be presenting or discussing hardware or equipment. Instead, I want to discuss church filming standards. To clarify, this video is not for the $250,000 budgeted mega churches. No. This video is more for small, average church production teams that more often than not use PTZ cameras operating on $0 monthly budgets on a volunteer-only basis. And to keep things entertaining, I will be going over a handful of mistakes I have seen few too many production teams make, resulting in reduced video production quality that are easily avoidable. So why do we use professional PTZ cameras? As you can see here at Elim, we have 6 PTZs. These are Panasonic UE150s, controlled by one AWRP 150. And the PTZ operator operates the Blackmagic designed ATM switcher as well. Well, if you are like me, you are operating in such a way because you believe that one operator should be able to deliver reasonable quality all by himself. And you simply have no other choice since you do not have enough operators and you operate on a $1 a month budget basis, and getting people to volunteer to cover the mandatory minimum 3 positions on Sunday is proving difficult as is. Therefore, I understand your struggle. Now imagine trying to convince an additional 4 volunteers to show up every Sunday to man the additional cameras necessary if you are not running PTZs. That would sound pretty difficult. To put it bluntly, PTZs are always there, always ready. They don't complain, whine, and they don't show up late. Keeping all that in mind, understanding that setting expectations is important. Working on a set composed of only pro PTZ cameras will never produce the end results of a 5-man professional crew with roaming cameras, jibs, tracks, dollies, and a handful of PTZs. But a good production is doable with PTZs. This is why I am trying to put down some standards in this video by outlining the most obvious mistakes I have seen in my 20 years of directing budget PTZs production. Number 1 is camera height. Stop making your cameras look like security cameras. Let me give you a scenario. Your church just updated their camera system. You get your new PTZs, and the first question that comes across your head, and you ask yourself, where is it most convenient to install these brand new cameras so they are out of the way and barely noticeable by the general congregation? You're already starting on the wrong foot by asking the wrong questions, because the objective for each camera should have a shot purpose and not to be placed conveniently out of sight. A PTZ camera does not need to be mounted 15 to 25 feet in the air simply because it can be remotely controlled. When you mount cameras extremely high up on the wall, you create that unmistakable surveillance camera perspective. Lots of floors, tops of people's heads, distorted stage geometry, and very little room presence. For worship segments and sermon production, the camera should generally try to approximate a human viewing perspective. For example, camera number 2 is our lead camera. Positioned on the wall, close to the center of the room, out of the way, but more importantly, it is positioned relative to the height of the stage and the pulpit. Since the speaker behind the pulpit and the singers are aiming their speech towards the audience, it makes sense placing the camera lower, giving your viewers the impression that they are part of the congregation rather than side view spectators. In other words, camera height and position should be determined by the desired shot, not by convenience of installation or aesthetics. A center lead camera slightly elevated above eye level is perfectly reasonable. A rear wide shot may naturally need to be higher, but your lead and principal camera should not be hanging from the ceiling or from unreasonable heights. Oh yes, number 2, sleeping on the cameras. I get it. Most church technical departments are composed of enthusiastic young volunteers who are addicted to their cell phones and use sermon time as an indicator to feed their addiction, which is partially the reason why I invented and used the UE control center to move and switch cameras automatically during sermons. Let me explain. There's nothing inherently wrong with a 30, 40, 60-second shot during a sermon. In fact, constantly cutting every 5 seconds during a speech or a sermon would be distracting. Additionally, your lead center camera should be live 30 to 40 seconds or even 60 seconds before you switch to the next camera. The problem is when there is no visual progression whatsoever for your viewing audience. Remember, your audience sees the world through a narrow corridor known as the camera lens. And it is your job as a director to give a engaging, accurate production to your audience. Unlike the audience in the sanctuary who have more incentive to stay focused and to follow the sermon or activity within the sanctuary, your audience watching from home, the live stream, can easily lose interest and focus. Therefore, 5 or 10 minutes on one medium shot of the speaker or pastor starts feeling less like a produced broadcast and more like a security recording. For sermon coverage, you should switch from the lead camera to alternate angle cameras every 20 to 40 seconds, keeping in mind the lead shot should be on target for at least 40 to 60 seconds. Number 3, repetitive shots. Don't feel bad. I am dealing with the same issue trying to explain this to my guys as well. What's happening here is operators often confuse camera angles with shot composition. For example, we have 3 cameras starting from camera 1, looking at 5 singers, medium wide shot from the left. Then we cut to camera 2, looking at the same 5 singers, medium wide shot from the center. Then we cut to camera 3, looking at the same 5 singers, medium wide shot, right side. Theoretically, these are 3 different camera angles. However, from an editorial standpoint, they are almost the same shot, just different angles, and the viewer gained absolutely nothing from these cuts. To fix this issue, first you have to understand that a different camera does not automatically mean a different shot. Change the composition, not the camera number. For example, camera 1 looking at the 5 singers, starting from a full shot, zooming in. Then we cut to camera 3 looking at the lead singer or the pianist. Then we transition to camera 6, providing a close shot of the drum set. Then followed by camera 4, short sweep of the crowd. Then back to camera 2, starting from a wide shot while slowly zooming in. In other words, shot contrast. A cut or transition should ideally contain some kind of contrast. Wide to tight, individual to group, stage to audience, stage to drums, drums to lead singer. While directing, ask yourself this: if I switch from your camera to another, what new information does the viewer get? If the answer is, well, is the same thing, just a different shot, then you probably don't need that shot. Number 4, the dreaded safety camera. We don't have that here. Stare and wonder why. Although a safety shot is nice to have, it is way too easy for technical operators to become way too accustomed to it as a technical fallback. What I have seen is generally a camera placed in the back of the room, sometimes at a terrible angle, sometimes not, so wide that it is encompassing every possible activity or scenario that could happen in the room, generally somewhere close to the ceiling or at an edge of a balcony. That is how you get the safety shot wrong. So what is the fix for the dreaded safety shot? In the field, I do have a safety shot, but I do not call it a safety shot. So imagine a PTZ position approximately 30 to 40 degrees off the platform, far enough back that it can capture stage, congregation, speaker, musician, etc. Position the camera well, then using the UE Control Center software, program a slow, consistent movement from the stage to the audience. Of course, this can be done with an operator if you're not using a PTZ. Now, what is the end result? Your emergency bailout shot or camera isn't merely a technical fallback anymore. It becomes an established shot. And during a program, that side rear perspective can be gorgeous and add substance to your setup because it provides something the other cameras cannot, hence why I call the safety shot the rear side fill. Number 5, way too many static shots. Now, I'm not advocating for movement all day. We are, after all, using PTZs and there's limitation. But let this example enlighten you. This is what I witnessed watching the live stream from a friend's wedding. The bride and the groom walk in and whoever is directing decides to use a shot wide enough to capture the front of the aisle to the back of the aisle, from the door to the altar, and keeping the shot static, no zooms, no pans, as the bride and the groom were passing through the shot. Amazing, their special day, and they got to see themselves from a mile away, essentially. If the bride and groom are walking down the aisle and the camera is just sitting there waiting for them to cross through the frame, the audience gets very little detail. They see the event happen from a distance, but they don't really experience it. This can be applied in many other scenarios, and it basically boils down to this. When the subject moves, the camera should usually move with the subject. That doesn't mean every shot needs to pan, tilt, zoom, or track constantly. Movement needs to be deliberate. But if there is a clear subject movement, the camera should often maintain composition on the subject. Lastly, number 6, don't forget that the congregation is part of the story. This is a huge church-specific filming problem. It is very easy for the church production team to unconsciously treat the worship group like a concert and focus only on the stage. Meanwhile, there's an entire congregation participating in the worship that never appears on the video. For the same reason you would use crowd mics to capture a percentage of the audience during the performance for online audio, you must also capture the audience on video. Remember, it's Sunday. The band's purpose during the congregational worship isn't merely to perform at the audience. They're generally leading the room into worship, leading the audience into worship. Therefore, the congregation is part of the story, and you as the director is attempting to put out that story into the world via the live broadcast. Therefore, I recommend a 75-25 approach as a good training starting point. 75% stage, 25% congregation. With that being said, these are the 6 main issues holding back most church video production quality, which I have identified so far. If you appreciate this content, go ahead, like and subscribe, and if you want, leave a comment. Thank you, and I will see you in the next video.